Start to feel more rather than less. Hope you figured out how to surrender right around your edges. Like, so when you start the process of moving, of feeling more rather than less, there's kind of like a, one way to do it is you kind of around your edges, just go, okay, I'm just gonna, huh. And what I hope is that you start to recognize when your mind actually softens, so does your body, right? That they're actually much more, because your mind is connected to your autonomic nervous system and your voluntary nervous system. So as your mind starts to go, okay, wait, and let yourself exhale and just let the edges, right, of your body, and so you're trying to be more open to the space around you. Maybe time is like feeling like it's not in quite a rush. Because from this place is where asana starts. So you just kind of let yourself land and feel. Pay attention to your exhalation, and hopefully already, just kind of because of it's your habit, you're actually softening the inside of your mouth and your jaw. Like these things start to become rote, right? As soon as you start to, and then my words are only a reminder of what you're doing without making them separate. So there's this dropping. You don't have to hold up the world. Hold up your day. Your day is going to happen regardless of if you're holding it up mentally. And then start to bring a little bit more attention to your base, to your feet on the floor, to your sits bones. And so you're starting to activate some of your structure, right? Making it a little bit more precise. So come up on the, maybe scoot out to the edge of your chair or feel more clarifying on your sitting bones. Feel your feet on the ground. Connect your sitting bones to your feet by making it a little bit more conscious to extend from the inner groin down to the inner knee, down to the heel. So as you hit down through your sitting bone, you start to lift up through your chest. So you're learning how to build a more refined presence, a more structured presence, right? And then you start to add slightly more complexity. So you're going down, you're rising up, you're lifting your chest, but now broaden between your shoulder blades as you descend them down. But as you do that, don't overarch your low back. Soften your jaw again around the temples, the skin on your face, because you probably tightened them already. I know I did. Balance your head over your neck. Close your eyes from top to bottom. Let go of your day. Feel the strength of your presence and your structure. Let go of your day and prepare your mind to do yoga. Maybe pay attention to the filling up and the emptying of the inhalation and the exhalation. Good. And then release. And then lift your sternum and drop your chin. So you're trying to integrate the two. And remember, you lift your chest more than you drop your chin. right? Because you don't want the drop of the chin to make you drop your chest. So you're really taking the time to lift the sternum. And then after that's really lifted, you drop the chin without dropping your sternum. And you follow the breath into each nostril, into each lung. You feel each sitting bone in each foot. So you breathe directly into a sense of symmetry throughout your entire body. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. So there's this I don't know if it's a concept. So there's the poses you do, the what you do with your body, and then there's the how, right? And hopefully you figured out that the how in a lot of ways is more important than the what. That's the whole premise of adaptive yoga, is that whether your pose looks like a traditional pose or not, it's more about the how, right? And one of the things that is a concept or a tool to actually um, do asana is this it's called reposing, or and so first of all, even in centering, when you're doing asana and not just meditation, right? But even with meditation too, but I don't want to get into that there's but in every asana the pose is constantly becoming and constantly moving, right? So if you ever get to a place and then you just find yourself you're holding it and you're staying static on the inside, that's not what a yoga pose is supposed to be doing. It's constantly moving and becoming, but that's not because your mind is overactive, right? But so you practice over and over so you can, like right now, feel your sitting bones, your feet, lift your chest, drop the shoulder blades and broaden them. All those things are happening, right? And you're not chasing each instruction. You do them, right? But you keep letting them happen, right? You don't just, okay, no, I've done it and I'm done. There's no such thing as being done with an instruction. That doesn't mean you're pressing the instruction. Okay, so two things. This idea that an asana is in constant motion is a really important thing. And then this idea of reposing, because what happens is you need contrast to have your mind actually reactivate, because your mind will habituate and get dull. And so there's an idea of letting your pose like drop for a second, not your whole body, and then reactivate, re-go through the instructions, reposing, right? So and what you realize is that you can drop and let in relief without collapsing your body, right? So you're constantly like beginning again. So not only do you get to begin again each day you wake up, but even in a pose, throughout the pose, you can go through its parts, staying with the whole and go through in the parts. So you're reposing. So sit up straight and tall. Right. And one of the things that this idea of reposing allows you to do is it allows you to add more refinement and precision to your movement, right? To whatever action you're doing. Right. And so and the type of yoga that I study and I teach you is Iyengar yoga, which is really refined. Right. It's got different parts happening all the time. So again, be in this state where you're actually quiet enough to let the pose keep happening, right? So you're not just so quiet you're hold frozen. You're actually quiet and happening at the same time, right? So lift your chest, feel your sitting bones, extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. Balance your head over your neck, all these things. are happening. And then I might pause and redo them again. Each time refining, going deeper, because the mind has a hard time with emptiness. So you keep your mind busy on one level without changing the underlying dynamic. Good, and then release. So this allows for precision. So put your arms down by your sides. Right, so down by your sides. And let's just take some time to be slightly more precise. So here's my thumb facing forward, right? And now I'm just gonna turn my palms forward for a second. And notice if you didn't think about it very much, you probably just turned from your elbow. But now I want you to make sure this next time, so your arms are down by your sides, right? I want this next time, I want you to lift under the collarbones. And then when you turn your palms forward, don't just do it from the elbow, try to revolve from the inner upper arm, the inside of your upper arm out, right? So I'm lifting the collarbones and then I turn my palms forward. And then I release and try to notice the change you feel, and then back to the side, the change you feel on the inner edge of your shoulder blades. Turn your palms forward again, right? And then back, and then forward again, and then back. So now already your mind's probably getting a little bit of like, yeah, whatever. So now bring your hands back into prayer. So now we just add variation. Right? So now we're just having your mind stay occupied with something else for a second. And then back to your sides, right? And so I'm lifting on the collarbones. I'm turning my palms forward. I'm initiating the action both from the inner edge of my shoulder blades and from my upper arm. Now, once I'm here, I'm going to broaden across my shoulder blades, lift under my collarbones, and increase the activation of the upper body of my toes. Good, and then release. So a lot of you that have been doing yoga longer, as soon as you start to activate your upper body with such precision, you probably are already engaging your legs because the pose is already in you, right? And if you weren't, if you were just listening to my instructions and there wasn't a change happening in the bottom part of your pose, right? Let this next time, let your legs and your sitting bones support this extra refined action. So arms at your sides again, right? And so now I'm lifting out the collarbones. I'm turning my palms forward, right? I'm getting both the rotation of the inner upper arm, the connection to the shoulder blades, broadening across the shoulder blades. But now I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones and extend up to the top of my head. Now, as soon as I do that, I'm going to extend from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. So all of a sudden, through very slow building and precision, my whole body is doing this right now. I'm going to take time to extra lift the side armpit chest. Then I'm going to come into prayer and I'm going to watch what happens. Did my side armpit chest drop? Right? So for me to get on balance, I'm going to have to lean back and put my hands back to my sides. Lift everything up. Feel my heat, my sitting bones. All those things we've already done. Keep all of that lift and bring my hands into prayer. So now, as I connect the heel of my hands, I want to be extra aware of lifting the side armpit chest right underneath here. As I do that, I want to hit down through my sitting bones, extend from my inner groin to my inner knee and down through my inner heel. So there's a lot happening, right? Can I do all of this without having my mind have to race? So instead of my active mind trying to do all the things, I'm going and I'm going through all the instructions making sure, not just doing them and trying to activate them, but to visit them. Visit all the instructions. Because you're trying to integrate your more active frontal cortex mind with the mind that was already doing. And breathe. So many different layers of you. So many different layers of your mind. Good. And then release. All right. So again, now we're just going to start warming up. So now, hopefully, you feel a little bit more of your container and some fatigue. And so now we're just going to lighten it up a little bit. Lean over it. And going from side to side. Actually, I'm going to do a whole circle. And I'm doing it backwards. I would normally go clockwise at first. And so just because yoga is about variation, I'm going in a way that I don't usually go. Then I'm going to sit in the center and then go the other way. So I'm just watching and moving my spine and making sure I take a little bit of extra time to make sure I'm doing things in both directions. And then the other way, right? So I'm just going and doing a couple circles. Then I'm going to swing back and go the other way. So my brain is getting more and more input, right, from different sensations in my body. And then I'm going to come back in the center and sit up straight and tall. And feel and lift my chest. Bring my arms back down by my sides, turn my palms out. Lift the sternum, hit down through the sitting bones, down through the heels. Take a breath. Bring my hands into prayer or together, whatever you can do. And feel it again. Right? And then back down to my sides. And I'm going to reactivate. And then release. And then I'm going to come forward this time and come forward. Right? And lengthen my spine because I'm warming up here. I'm trying to get a sense of my spine in relationship to my body. And then back over the back of my chair and open it back up. And then forward again. And then over to the right. And then over to the left. Right? So, and then back and forth. So one of the things about precision and why people don't like to refine their poses over and over again, this is like it and I'm just going back and forth, is it kind of takes all the air out of the balloon, right? You end up like refining with the same amount of air. That's why I'm having you practice refining to movement, right? So come back to your hands at your sides again, right? So you're not just staying here in this place, right, where I come back into prayer. Like if I only held you in this movement, it'd be like taking all the air out of the balloon, right? You'd actually, and then release. Now go off to the side. So we're like we're making sure the refinement includes, I'm gonna lift up, hang and go back down, lift up again. So we're making sure the refinement doesn't squeeze out the air out of the pose, doesn't make it be all so gripped, right? And then keeping that sense of lightness. Can I refine? Can my precision not, what I'm saying metaphorically, take the air out of the balloon? Can I have the refinement and the sense of lightness and spaciousness? This is why you repose, is that you're getting so you don't always squeeze your poses, right? And so now I'm trying to lift the inner upper arm, right? From the inner, watch my shoulder blades, expand them, hit down, lift up, come into prayer. And then back down. And then hands on the legs. So again, I'm trying to show you that reposing is like letting more air back in your pose, because your mind will have a tendency to take the joy out of the pose, the air out of the pose, right? Because that's what you think success is. Our minds take the air out of our experience, right? A lot of the time. So lean forward. Sometimes the mind has to be there to set up the beauty of something, but If it holds on too tight, it ends up taking the joy out of it. So you're leaning forward and taking a couple breaths, lifting the collarbones. So I'm watching to see if each lung is actually filling at the same rate. They're not, it's not, right? So to me, it's because my rib cage is rotated from my scoliosis. So I'm going to unroll. So for me, I fall this way. For me, it means I have to rotate my rib cage, hit down through my sitting bones, lift under my collarbones, and take a breath into the equalness of my rib cage. You have versions of that in your own pose, right? And so you're trying to be guided by a sensation of wholeness in your pose, not just the sensations of the instructions, right? Wholeness should be guiding your poses, and then release and come on back. So now we're going to take the left arm up, hit down through the sitting bones and touch the ceiling. How do you be the conduit? And then coming down, and then take the other arm up. So then there's all these things that you can do. Hit down through your sitting bones and then stretch up to the fingertips. So now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add an instruction, right? Inhale, take the left arm up, hit down through the sitting bones, but now extend down to each inner heel, but go beyond your fingertips. And then go down. And then take the other arm up, obviously hit down to the sitting bones, reach beyond your fingertips, but now hit down from the inner groin to the inner heel as you're up, and you're going beyond your fingertips. So more of you is going down, and then release. So there's this wonderful line that I heard before I did that. Let's take the left hand outside the right leg. Let's twist a little bit. So just like start to feel. And again, I want to get this playful feeling. I don't want to just squeeze my poses, especially on a Monday morning. You don't want to squeeze all the time. And then come on back to center. And then go the other way. So I'm just trying to wake up my spine still, right? So I'm not trying to strive so hard. I'm trying to have a different relationship to the instructions. So, and then come on back to center. So this idea that you're always going down and up in every pose, right? So sit up on your sitting bones, hit down to your sitting bones. Extend from the inner groin to the inner knee, down to the inner heels, lift the collarbones up. Continue that up to the top of your head while taking your shoulder blades down. So there's a constant interplay of rising and falling in every pose, right? And I was teaching one time at my yoga teacher studio in San Diego, and I was talking about the perpetual rise and fall that is actually a reflection of the existential condition in our lives and in our poses, and poses reflect that. And so the whole weekend, I was teaching for a whole weekend, I was talking about down and up the whole time, and then release. And on the last day, I like little tricks like this, especially as an adaptive yoga student. So she said, you know, man, on the last day, I made a comment on the last day of the last class I was teaching. And she said, you know, when you talk about this rising and falling, I'm reminded of a thing I read in an ancient text. This is Joe talking now. And she said that in one of the ancient texts, it was written that the yogi, your yoga poses are the weaving between the earth and the sky, right? So that in every pose, you should have an awareness of up and an awareness of down, and recognize that you are the conduit and the connections between spaciousness at the sky and grounded solidity at the base. And your pose is the weaving. So if you're doing a pose and you're not staying connected to what's down and what's up, you're not fulfilling your role as a yogi. You're supposed to be the weaving between the earth and the sky. And I remember again, like, that sounds beautiful. What the hell does it mean? And then she did this, right? Okay, she said, so sit up straight and tall. She said, try this, she said to the class. She said, So you're balancing on your sitting bones, you're feeling your feet, you're lifting your chest, right? And just feel that. Now I'm going to do it one arm at a time. If it's easier for you to take your arms over your head, do it twice, do both arms. But once I did that, I would lose my balance. And if I use both arms, and once I lose my balance, I'm no longer the weaving between the earth and the sky. I'm falling too fast. When I'm off balance, I'm falling. In order for me to be the connection between the energies that is represented by earth and sky, I need to be off balance. So now inhale and take, if you're doing it one arm at a time, take your left arm up. Now, as I'm hitting down through my sitting bones and through my inner heels down to the floor, right? Instead of just reaching and striving for the sky, from a sense of your sitting bones and feet, bring the sky, down to your fingertips. Bring it down. Keep your arm up, but bring the sky down. And then once you've done that, bring the earth up. Good, and then release. Now, I don't know about you, but this actually was a big breakthrough for me, right? All of a sudden that I can bring that energy down and then meet it with the rise. That's really cool, right? So take the other arm up, and if you can do it with both arms, do it with both arms. So now I'm making sure I feel my feet and my sitting bones, right? But now I'm going to reach and not just strive. I'm going to touch the sky. And to do it, I'm going to bring it down. So as I bring the sky down, I drop my shoulder blades and hit down through my sitting bones. And then I'm going to feel that and extend up towards the sky from the earth. I am the weaving. What if you're the bridge? Right? That both energies travel through us. Good. And then come on down. So because I'm a yogi and I can do it better one arm at a time, and I'm better when I'm on balance, I'm still going to do it when I'm off balance. Right? So everyone that did it, try to take both arms up. Try to recreate. I can tell you, boy, I struggle to touch the sky. Right? But I'm still going to go through trying to bring the sky down and reach and meet it. Good. And then release. So this idea of both sides, right, is really important. So now I want you to come forward. These are all ways of refining a pose to repose, right? And so hit down through your sitting bones. Right? Lift under the collarbones. Except now, I don't want the instructions to be just top and bottom. So I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones. And I'm going to keep grounding down through my sitting bones and try to rise up through my spine one vertebrae at a time. Although I don't exactly know where my vertebrae are, each individual one, I kind of have a sense. In other words, I'm hitting down and trying to make space all the way up through. Right? And then from that grounded, I'm going to rise towards the sky. And then I'm going to bring the sky down to solidify my pose. And then I'm going to meet it with the lift in my chest. I'm making this a really intense pose. Good. And then release. Sit in symmetry. So now that to me was a pretty active pose, what we just did. Right, when I was doing it. And so now, this idea of rising and falling, I'm going to test it by adding something horizontal. All right, so now I'm going to take my right arm off to the side, right, and I'm going to hit down through my sitting bones, stretch out through the top of my head, ground my feet, bring my shoulder blade back this way, extend beyond my fingertips, and then I'm going to hit down to my sitting bones and rise up the top of my head to go beyond my fingertips over here, right? So I'm using this kind of extension to expand this kind of extension, the horizontal extension, and then release. I'm going to do it the other way, right? So now I'm hitting the shoulder blade in and going beyond the fingertips, hitting down through my sitting bones and rising up to the top of my head. The problem with yoga, and the wonderful thing about yoga and then release, is that there's always more to do, right? So we're going to go back to the first side. Okay, so I'm going to be in alignment, take the right arm out, use this to improve this. But now I want to integrate what's underneath my arm and what's on top of my arm, lengthening my neck, hitting down through my sitting bones in order to receive what's above and below my arm. And I'm going to breathe and then release. And then I'm going to go the other way. So again, I'm hitting down, rising up, stretching out to the side. But now I'm integrating the space underneath my arm and this space above my arm to my neck. And I'm breathing. I'm just adding precision. My mind isn't, I'm not doing anything to actually feel the space above and below my arm. I'm trying to be open to it. Good, and then release. So now I'm going to take both arms wide, and I got to reposition myself for balance. And now I've got this horizontal extension, right? I'm going down to rise up, to expand out through the fingertips. So now I'm not just reaching for the sky and connecting to the earth. I'm trying to do the same thing beyond my fingertips and at my shoulder blades, down to my feet, up through the top of my head. There was so many layers of your activation. Good, and then release. The difference between a more advanced practitioner and us is that when they take their arms wide the first time, they're doing all of those things, but their mind is staying calm, right? They're doing all the actions. All right, inhale, take your arms wide again. Don't chase the instructions, do them. Focus on your breath. Notice where the fatigue comes. Readjust. What part have you left? I'm having trouble staying connected to the sky. Good, and then release. All of these things allow for more layers of you. Take the left hand outside the right leg, take the other hand behind you. Again, we're just trying to not just take all the air out of the balloon, right? We're trying to keep a sense of lightness in the poses. That's why we're twisting right now. And then come on back to center, because focus tends to take space out of the pose, right? Inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve. So one of the things that I think, and then come back to center, remember, one of the limbs is actually concentration, right? In general, when I think about focus, I do it mentally and I end up collapsing the spaces or taking the air out of the balloon in order to focus my mind. What if focus had to include the empty spaces in your pose? What if you shouldn't squeeze to focus? You should actually be calm to focus, right? And that's for me, it's a whole different way of trying to do it. Take your arms wide. So the reason why I want my head balanced over my neck is to feel space. Yes, my muscles are working. Yes, I'm hitting down to my sitting bones. Yes, I'm lifting my sternum. Yes, I'm feeling the sky above me. All of those things. But can I stay active and stay open? Can I do both? And the answer is yes, with a lot of practice. Good, and then release. So come forward again. So we're going to lengthen the low back again. So I'm coming forward onto a table. I could be on my thighs, but I'm taking the time to let just my spine be a microcosm of what we just did. When my arms are wide and I was hitting down through the sitting bones and stretching out to the top of my head, and extending beyond each fingertip and bringing my shoulder blades back towards the spine. I'm doing the same thing here without my arms. I'm leaning forward. I'm hitting down through my sitting bones. I'm extending my spine. I'm broadening across my collarbones, front and back. I'm hitting down from the inner groin to the inner knee down to the inner heel. And I'm filling the space in the room. This isn't that different than what we were doing with our arms wide. We're just doing it through our torso, right? And that's a big place to be more aware of. Good. And then release. Now sit up straight and tall and activate through the torso just as well as when you were leaning forward, which is going to be harder because you don't have as much grounding. So how am I going to be as integrated in my torso? Now, as soon as I go to take my arms wide, I know as soon as I shift off this balance, I'm going to collapse. So I'm going to try to counteract that, keep my spine long and take my arms wide. I'm going to try to lift under the collarbones to help me go beyond my fingertips. I'm going to try to balance my head over my neck. But I'm making sure the integrity is in my torso in every direction. As I'm working my legs in a more vertical plane, my arms in a more horizontal plane, trying to see if I'm equal on each side of my head, on the front and back, and then release, take the arms down. So what's going to happen in the yoga pose is everything's going to get challenged as gravity changes. So lean way over to the right. Can I recreate? And the last time I was in one of the classes, I was having you push on your rib cage here. And all I'm trying to do is I tend to fall out this way when I lean this way. So I'm pushing in on my rib cage right by my diaphragm to actually try to get my whole torso to be equal in the pose. And I'm seeing my head was going up because I was talking to the screen. Now I'm going to keep my sternum in line, my chin in line with my sternum. I'm going to activate all sides of my rib cage. I'm going to recognize that my balance is different on my sitting bones. I'm going to notice the change in my feet. I'm going to allow that, and I'm going to try to integrate that, try to equalize it, and I'm going to breathe. Good, and then release. So this part of your spine around the diaphragm is, because Inger says it's the intersection of the subtle body or the energetic body with the physical body. So that we were touching on the rib cage was not just for no reason. That was for a reason, right? And I'm going to go the other way and notice how different the pose is. Holy crap. So I'm going to press here, but I got to expand here because of my scoliosis. So I'm going to now try to get my torso, right? So I'm going to actually push my ribcage into my finger here. The other way I had to push it in, right? But I'm trying to activate my spine in every direction as part of the pose. Good, and then release. When I activate so much in my spine, I tend to leave my legs behind. I don't know if that's true for you. If you're sitting, it probably is. So now I'm going to take my hands, because I know that grounding from my base is in every pose. I'm going to put my hands on my knees and reintroduce. When I was side to side, I tried to be in my legs, but I didn't get it as well as I wanted. So now I'm going to push into my knees and lift my chest, but let the grounding sensation coming from my legs into my spine actually fill the vessel. And now when I'm doing that, I'm going to hit down from my sitting bones and touch the top of my head to the sky. But now I'm going to bring the sky down to the top of my head. And I'm going to go from the base up towards the sky. And I'm going to breathe. because I already know, especially sitting in a chair, my legs didn't work right. Good, and then release. Now we're going to go to the first side, right? I'm going to ground into this place of right around the mid side of the spine. I'm going to get that to be lifted. I'm going to lift under my collarbone, stretch out to the top of my head. Then I'm going to take my arm up. I'm going to do something strange for my brain. I'm going to take my left arm that's up, go across to my right knee, push in on my right knee, broaden across my collarbones, broaden across my sacrum. Keep that grounding in the I guess that's the right knee, pardon me. I'm doing it backwards to you, and then back up. So I'm doing these things to keep grounding in my legs, and then back down to the opposite. So left arm, right knee. Use that reference to lift your chest. Then back up. Breathe into the whole torso. Take the arm over. Don't lose this arm up this way, just like keep feeling it, even though it's not sticking out that way. Don't lose the horizontal as I'm getting more in a straight line with my spine. And then back up. And then down to the grounding of the opposite knee. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, take it up again. Exhale, inhale again, exhale, take it over your head. Now turn the spine towards the sky, but keep the earth down through the sitting bone. Good, and then release. Come back in the center. I always like noticing if I were not to do the other side, how funny it would feel. Because I'm always training my brain to come back into symmetry, right? And trying to feel stuff. So I'm taking a couple of breaths, noticing that one side of my body receives the breath differently than the other side now. All right. And then go over to the side. You're gonna, again, find out, for me, again, I have to push into this way instead of pushing my hand into my rib cage. Because I'm trying to make this, my spine, go in every direction. I'm lifting, I'm rolling my shoulders back, lifting my sternum. Then I go up. Oops, I lost my balance. Then I'm going to go over my head. But I'm going to keep that arm like it's going out that way too. So my whole torso actually is doing the pose in every direction. Now I'm going to reach down, go out to the side again, pardon me. And then down and grab the opposite knee and engage my torso again. Have that sense of grounding. Then take my arms wide. Lengthen my spine. Turn and take my arm over my head. Again, I've got to keep that torso active. Go back to wide. Down to the knee. I got to readjust. Get my torso revolving. Filling, spreading. Back up. Over. Back up. And then come on up. Be in the center. Be the midline. Keep the midline. Take your legs wide. So we're not going to do a full pose. I just want you to get your legs spread. So as the legs are spread, like I'm doing this quick little thing where I'm trying to make sure that each side of my rib cage, I connect to my sitting bones, but then I connect each side of my rib cage to each knee. So I'm literally trying to extra and then grab my wheelchair seat and put my knees farther apart. So I'm literally trying to get the outer edges out to the outer knee. right? And the only way I can do that is hitting through my sitting bones, right? Because remember, this is the intersection of the subtle body and the physiological body. So broaden across the sacrum, broaden across the collarbones, hit down through your sitting bones, stretch up to the top of your head, bring the sky down, let the earth meet the sky, and then point to your knees from your rib cage. Ground the feet, extend the spine. Breathe. Good, and then release. Bring the legs back in line in center. I'm going to do that again in a second, but going back and forth from the midline to more expanded and maintaining the up and the down is in every yoga pose. So now come forward. Lengthen the spine again. Again, I often say this to traditional students, like they move their arms and their legs, but they forget they have a torso. They think it's about the arms and the legs. It was always about your spine. That was always the truth. Good, and then take your legs wide again. So again, I'm trying to get my sitting bones lifting my chest, finding that point on each rib cage and connecting it by grounding the sitting bones, connecting it to each knee. As I do that, hitting down through my sitting bones and up through the top of my head. So this should be all lit up. If this was light bright, it's pointing in every direction as a solid color. But is it coming out the back side of your body as much as the front side? Oh, that's different. The way the light shines out of the back side of your torso is different than the front side. In general, I would say the yogis metaphorically would say the front side of your spine is more like sun and the sunshine, and the back side is more like moonshine. Not to be confused with alcohol, right? It's actually a different quality of light that comes out the back. And breathe. Good, and then bring your legs back together. Inhale, take your left arm up. Hit down, rise up. Bring the sky down, have the earth meet the sky in your body. In your body, probably right about the diaphragm. The sky comes down, earth rises. Yeah. Right? And then exhale, come to the outside of your leg, the other hand behind you. So we're just twisting to bring some of the air back in the balloon. So don't squeeze so hard on this twist that you take the air out of the balloon. Keep open, keep feeling, keep breathing. Good, and then release. And then inhale and take the other arm up. Hit down, rise up, bring the sky down. Let the earth meet the sky right about the diaphragm at the intersection. And then exhale. Take the other hand behind you. And again, inhale, lift up, exhale, revolve, but keep aware of all the directions that we've been paying attention to. Filling the torso, being aware front and back, the sky above, the earth below, everything's meeting. You are the weaving between this earth and the sky and the earth. And it comes right through your body. You are the conduit. Good, and then come on back to center. Be in the center. I kind of like being a conduit. I kind of like being connected spaciously to what surrounds me. So I'm going to sit here and let it be true before I come into Shavasana. I would challenge anybody to truly argue that you're not connected to everything. Clearly, your mind isn't. Your mind judges all the time. But actually, as I sit here, I actually am part of something. And the idea of asana is that moving your body actually reveals this connection. As long as you don't get caught up in the doing, as long as your mind doesn't chase instructions, and you practice enough so the mind doesn't have to chase. Good. And then release, prepare for Shaasana. So whatever that means for you, reposition, tip back. But an essential part of Shavasana is letting yourself be held up by something else, right? And not just the way a sack of potatoes hits the ground, right? So remember, like, let's say the sack of potatoes has some dust in the sack and the sack hits the ground, but there's kind of a flash up of dust out of the sack, right? Yep. So as you fall down into your base, don't just go in one direction. Let there be a gentle rising in Shavasana. So for me to keep my mind sensitive to both, I do touch the tips of my thumbs together, but you can find your own way. And I soften the jaw, the skin on my face, around the temples, the inside of my mouth, for the lightness that comes when I feel safe. Feel your breath. Be grateful. You're a conduit. Thank your body. Thank it again. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. You get to become. Your breath is always guaranteeing movement. Always. When you're ready, open your eyes. It's too bright, close them again. Know what you're in for, and then open them one more time. I remember one time in Shavasana, or actually I read it in some writing by B.K. Sangar, and it made me realize that even in Shavasana, what I taught today was actually, it's in Shavasana. He said, when you're laying, and try this in your bed tonight, when you're laying in bed tonight, and lay flat on your back, let the outer edges of your body fall towards the center of the earth, right? So let the outer edges fall, the limbs, right? The outer edges. And then the core channel in Shavasana goes towards the sky. So even when you're lying flat, there's a balance. And that's why you've heard me say Shavasana is a balancing pose. It's got the sky in it that's coming from after you allow the earth to hold you up. That there's a rise and a fall even in Shavasana in your bed tonight. All right, everybody, bring your hands together if you can. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you.